Modern science exposes the biblical narrative of God creating everything as a myth. When Christians cannot deny this, they have one last resort to prove that science is wrong. They point to the pain and suffering in this world and ask, so why is the world full of evil? See this exact question posted on our channel by a Christian who tries to prove that God created everything. He is asking, so why is the world full of evil? What he is trying to prove is that the presence of evil in this world points to God creating this world. How? This is the strategy. Science proves that the world operates through natural processes and there is nothing supernatural about it. If there is nothing supernatural about it, then there is no room for God. So Christians are desperate to prove the existence of the supernatural realm. Since they have no valid argument against the hard scientific facts of our origins, they have to find a way to prove there is supernatural activity in the world. That's why they appeal to evil, not as a social or biological byproduct, but as a supernatural reality. This Christian commenter believes that if he can prove evil is a spiritual force, he has effectively debunked the naturalist worldview. If evil is the effect of a supernatural entity, then it proves there is a supernatural reality in this world. That opens the door to bringing God into the conversation. He is trying to use the tragedy of human suffering as a proof of supernatural activity to bypass the receipts of science. This is not just one guy on YouTube. Christian philosophers like Peter Kreeft and Gregory Boyd use this exact strategy. They argue that evil is so intense that science and biology are insufficient to explain them. They are trying to force a supernatural wickedness into the conversation so they can claim that the materialist world of science has failed. They want you to believe that the world is a supernatural battlefield. Why? Because if they can convince you that there is a real evil spiritual entity, they have successfully debunked your scientific worldview and they have kicked open the back door to let their God in. But here is what they don't want you to realize. In a naturalist world, what they call evil is not a mystery at all. Suffering is perfectly expected in a universe governed by evolution and physics. The universe is a product of unguided physics and biology. It does not owe us a pain-free existence. It was never meant to be flawless. So the existence of suffering is not a contradiction. It is just a reality. Science does not claim this is a perfect universe. On the contrary, suffering is exactly what we should expect in a naturalistic world. The physical world is not good enough to eliminate pain. Christians think that pointing to suffering creates a problem for science, but the opposite is true. Science explains suffering. Christianity just tries to excuse it. Since he wanted to treat evil as a supernatural proof, I decided to turn the question around and ask him to answer for the world his God supposedly created. Understanding his intention, I asked him a question. I said, "You are asking, so why is the world full of evil?" That is a question you should be asking yourself. In a world supposedly governed by a loving and all-powerful God who hates evil, why is there so much evil? This is the question I posed to him. They claim that God is loving and He is all-powerful and that He hates evil. So why is there so much evil is a question Christians have to answer, not us. Now watch how he responded. He replied, "The world is not governed by a loving, all-powerful God. It is governed by men who long ago put their fate in the hands of Satan. The loving God came to this earth and took the penalty for that wickedness and offers forgiveness. You should know this." His answer exposes Christianity as an utterly absurd belief system. He thought he was protecting his God, but watch how he actually destroys him. Think about what he is admitting here. The world is not governed by a loving, all-powerful God. It is governed by men who long ago put their fate in the hands of Satan. To explain away the existence of evil, he has to strip his God of all authority. He is describing a God who lost his own creation to Satan. So, my final response to him was very simple. I said, "Exactly. So your God is incapable of keeping things under control. First, Satan took control from him. Then men took the remaining control. Then men gave that control back to Satan. And now you are trying to fool everyone into believing that your impotent God is going to take control back from men and Satan. They claim that their God is good, He hates evil, He is all-loving, and He is all-powerful. But there is no evidence for the existence of such a deity. The suffering and injustice in this world proves there is no such being. So they have to explain how evil could exist. That is when they invented the devil. He is the character they created to take the blame for the designer's flaws. They try to explain evil by saying that Satan hates God and is working against His plans. There is evil in this world because the world is currently governed by Satan. God gave us control, but we gave it to Satan. So we are to be blamed for the evil. Satan is to be blamed for all the pain and suffering. As I pointed out in my last response to him, this biblical God is incapable of keeping things under control. First, Satan took control from him, then men took the remaining control, then men gave that control back to Satan, and now Christians are trying to fool everyone into believing that their impotent God is going to take control back from men and Satan. So by trying to make room for the existence of their non-existent God, they have just converted him into an incompetent noise maker. So instead of begging an impotent God to take back control from a fictional devil, we should realize that the control is actually in our hands. It's time to move past the myths. Let's get rid of this useless imaginary sky daddy and start living our lives.